When I first met John, I was extremely excited. It was the first time that I had really started talking to guys and, you know, in hopes of having a relationship, so I was very excited, and he made me very happy, giving me compliments just made me feel good about myself, so it made me confident for what was going to come ahead. In the beginning, he, was very patient with me. I was told I had to introduce him to my parents before we started dating, so he was very understanding of that. My parents were fine with him in the beginning. He was polite enough, and he was pretty respectful of me. He wanted to spend time with me a lot, which I thought was very flattering, so I would do my best to try to get out of, whatever commitments I had to go and see him. But besides that, it was just a very normal relationship. I was just happy. Sometimes I would tell my friends that I had to do something else to hang out with John instead of hanging out with them, or if I had told my parents I was going to extra help after school, I would not go to that to go and be with John. But I thought that that was normal and expected because I wanted to hang out with him because I liked him so much. I definitely started to change when we started dating, but it was a gradual change. Nothing, my parents weren't concerned immediately or anything. It was just, I think everyone thought I was just excited to be in the relationship, so it wasn't anything drastic that I was doing. The first thing that John did that I thought was a little off was constantly texting me and asking me where I was. I was not used to that at all, but I thought that it was my responsibility to let him know where I was. So I would text back and, assure him that I was where I was saying I was going to be. But as time went on, it became even more intense. I was pushed to take pictures no matter who I was with. So if it was a situation where it wasn't a normal place to take pictures, I was very secretive about it. I tried not to let anyone see it because I was a little embarrassed by the fact that I was being asked to do this. But, I was going to do it to make John happy. As the relationship continued, there was verbal abuse. There were a lot of different put-downs, anything from the way I dressed to how I looked to, my financial status to, my parents' background. So, everything and anything was going to be made fun of, or I was going to be put down about. And again, at first it was something I wasn't used to and something I wouldn't have just accepted from anyone, but after, hearing it a couple times, I accepted it as the truth and let it happen. I would say, that I was a whore, or that I was cheating on him, or he would say I was dumb, a lot of different put downs. It made me lose self-confidence, and it made me feel that I was lucky to have him, because obviously if I was dumb or ugly or all these things that he was saying about me, no one else would want to be in a relationship with me. So it really, as much as I hated the fact that he was saying this stuff to me, it made me feel closer to him because I didn't think anyone else would accept me, and I started questioning even, do my parents really have my back? Do my friends have my back? Because I'm such a horrible person, and it just made me feel very attached to him. When it came to questioning my friends and my family and if they had my back, that was a huge part of the manipulation that John was capable of. He used his manipulation in order to isolate me, so that the only person that I was focusing on in my life was him. I was a freshman in high school, and I stopped playing sports. I was slipping when it came to grades. I wasn't involved in activities anymore, so he was a huge force in my life in terms of the manipulative behavior. Say things like, I try so hard to make time to see you, why don't you try to make time to see me? Or, even worse, in my opinion, at the time was, you're not a good girlfriend, like, I deserve better. And so I was constantly in fear of him leaving me or him cheating on me or, stuff like that. And so that was a huge fear of mine, and it pushed me to do the things that he was wanting me to do. The abuse did escalate. It became not just verbal and emotional abuse, it became physical, but at first I wasn't willing to accept that. I sort of just, shrugged it off my shoulders if he, grabbed my hand violently or he grabbed me by the shoulder or things like that. I wasn't really willing to accept it until one day I signed up for a class that he wasn't a fan of, and he grabbed me by the arm, brought me outside, and hit me in the head until I fell to the ground. And that was the moment where I realized that this relationship was becoming dangerous and abusive and physically abusive. But even at that point, I was so attached to him due to the manipulation and the verbal abuse and the isolation that I was willing to stay. There were definitely times in the relationship with John that I was very happy, when we weren't fighting or he wasn't putting me down, he made me feel like I could be myself around him. I had a lot of fun with him going places. He was older, so, he had certain privileges of going places that I wouldn't be able to go otherwise. So there were definitely times where I was happy in the relationship, but it wasn't happy enough that it, discounted all the abuse that I suffered. My friends didn't see the physical abuse, but they knew that it was going on. My friends and family were desperately trying to get me to leave the relationship. They wanted me to realize for myself that I deserved better, and would say things like, why are you with him? You're such a beautiful girl. Like, he's trash. Like, why are you still dating him? And again, going back to the manipulation, I took those words as them being either jealous of me or trying to break us up, not having my best interest. And so instead of having those words help me realize all the horrible things I was experiencing, it was pushing me towards him because I didn't want to be questioned. I felt like they were against me when in reality they were just trying to help me. After the initial experience where I knew that the relationship was becoming physically abusive, I think I accepted it and thought that it was only going to be that bad or only that kind of abuse, but it definitely escalated. It wouldn't just be one hit to the head. It would be, beating me up or, using different objects against me as weapons. I think on the surface, I didn't. I think I wanted to believe that I didn't deserve it, but deep down, if I stayed in the relationship, and so I was accepting it as this is my life, this is what I deserve, because, no one else would want to date me and no one else would treat me any different. John justified the physical abuse because I, in his eyes, disobeyed him if I wasn't, sending the pictures of where I was, or I talked to another guy, or I took too long to pick up the phone, he told me that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to and that I deserved what I was getting because of the fact that I didn't listen. And it got to the point where one day we were in just a terrible fight, and he brought me to the woods and took out a lighter and tried to light my hair, skin, and clothes on fire. And at that point, I realized how dangerous this was and how badly hurt I could get. And I went home and I told my mom what had happened, and I told her that I had broken off the relationship, which I had. John saw me at school. He knew all my classes. He knew where I was going to be, so it wasn't difficult for him to find me. I was told to get into the car because we were going somewhere. We arrived at a completely new house, and I asked where I was, and I was told that we had relocated to Connecticut because there was no way that my parents could sit back and watch me get abused any longer. When I realized that we were relocating and that there was no going back to New York, I think it hit me how my relationship not only affected my own life, but how it was affecting my parents and my friends. And I realized how much my parents really did support me, that they were willing to move not only my life, but their lives too, just because of what I was experiencing. But it was very difficult. I did lash out at my parents. I was very angry. I, still wanted to be in contact with John, but I think moving really helped me see what the experience was, and it was the first step of moving on from it. The police and the school knew about the abuse I was experiencing. The first incident of physical abuse, the police were called, and they took a record of what happened and then came to my house, and I was visibly upset and wasn't looking them in the eye. I was just distraught, and the police officer said, "Look me in the eye when I'm talking to you." And after that moment, there was no way I was ever going to get the police involved again, because I no longer felt like a victim. I felt like I had done something wrong. The school knew what was going on. My friends had mentioned it to a number of my teachers. The principal knew. They threatened to have both of us suspended if we were seen together in the hall, but never followed through with that. I was actually called into the dean's office one day because me and John had skipped class, and she told me that she knew what was happening to me and I needed to be a strong woman and get out of the relationship. And again, after that moment, I no longer felt like a victim because she wasn't doing anything to help me. She was just relying on me to fix the problem. Within a couple weeks of my moving to Connecticut, my mom received a phone call from John's mother saying that John wasn't in his bed and they couldn't find him, and that they were afraid that he was coming up to Connecticut to try to find me. And I got to my school and I was walking through the hallway, and John was there looking for me and told me that he had come to see me, come to go away with me. He wanted to run away. And luckily, my new school's response to the situation was much better than my old school's response. My principal immediately contacted the police because there was a trespasser. When they realized what the situation was, they were very understanding, making sure that I felt safe, and I, told the police what was going on, and after that, he never came to try to find me again. I think the biggest thing that my parents saw when I started dating John that changed in me was just the lack of my talking to them. I was very open with them before, and when I started the relationship, I started to close myself off. I didn't talk to them as much. If they tried to talk to me, I was very hostile towards them. Also, more subtle, just not hanging out with my friends as much. I was constantly hanging out with John. My grades also started to slip. I wasn't involved in school as much. So, if you start seeing that your son or daughter is only focused on their boyfriend or girlfriend, that might be an issue. I think that the biggest thing you can do if you know someone who's going through a dating violence situation is just let them know that you're there for them, and tell them resources that they can go to. It's not in your friends or your family's hands. They don't know necessarily the right tools and the right things to say, but if you can refer them to places like the Women's Center and things like that, that's a huge help. And just letting them know that no matter what they do, that they're there for them, I think that's the biggest thing that you can say.